What we're going to do is we're going to do like a presentation, but I definitely we want you to be working out the details of it for yourself as we move along with it. So participating and sharing your thoughts with it as you move along is the whole benefit of it all is your personal growth. Julie, do you?
Yep. And just making sure that like we sometimes we like to listen and consume and it feels good, but I think until we actually take the time to get it out of our brains and process it for ourselves is where the magic happens. So,
Yeah. And this first day, the first class is I'm going to be doing the teaching, and then I would love if you can share your insights. And then next week, Julie will be teaching, and we'll just kind of stagger it like that. And it's all leaning on what about you? Like, how do we love ourselves more? So Julie's hit record. I'm going to share a couple things with you, and then we'll get going on the little presentation. Okay. Okay. So recently we were with a client, and she, towards the end of it, um, literally just kind of stopped and said, how do I love myself more? Like, how do I do it? And I want you to know that I could not stop thinking about that, because knowing this person and knowing she's in her 40s and knowing that she's having that question really left a mark on my brain. And Julie and I talked, and she felt the same feelings. And so we felt, let's launch this. Let's do this where we talk about how, as women, we can love ourselves more. And so when I was a teenager, I was boy crazy. And I wanted to know if I loved a boy or I lusted a boy. And I had a young woman leader at church. She gave all of us girls a print off of what is love and what is lust. And so when I would think about a boy that I wondered if I loved him, which now as an adult, I know I didn't. Okay. It was all lust. Anyway, I would look at the list and go, okay, is this love or is this lust? And even with Matt, when I realized I was falling in love with him, I remember pulling out the list and going, is this love or is this lust? So I created for clients on their health and also loving themselves this list again, where you ask the question, am I loving myself or am I lusting myself, in a sense? Now that doesn't, I'm not saying perfect translation of it, but what I want you to do right now is I want you to think about how you love somebody in your life. So just take a minute. If you need to pause the video, like, how do you love if you're married, your spouse? How do you love your children? How do you love your grandchildren? If you have an animal and you really love it, how do you love it? So if you can and you're able to, can you share, like, tell me what you do to show how you love that animal, that person, that child, whoever it is? How do you do that? Linda?
It's kind of interesting because the very first thing that came to my mind was I take care of them, which immediately I thought, do I do that to myself?
Yeah. Yeah, good. And how do you take care of them? How do you do that? What do you do?
Oh, sometimes fixed meals. Um, like my dog and my husband, I make sure they take their medicine. I I take them to the doctor, make appointments for them.
Good. Good. Okay. And Julie, do you have any, like, how you show your love to Rich or the kids or your parents or your siblings or anything?
Yeah, same thing. I think that I spend my time on them first, right? I give most of my time to others versus myself. I serve them. That's your number one. You take care of them. I think ahead of time, we do their laundry, we make sure they have clean clothes, we do the grocery shopping, we read books, we um problem solve and troubleshoot shoot ways that we can make their lives better.
Yeah. So I feel like sometimes as women, it we can be left feeling like if we take care of ourselves, we're selfish or we're indulgent or um we're um just making ourselves a priority and not doing things for others. But the truth is the way that we love ourselves is the way that we will show up in loving other people. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Okay, so I want to go over this list of what I got from my young women leader, okay? And oops. I'm going to make it bigger here. Okay. So this is the list of love versus lust, okay? And I just want to, as we go through it, I just would love for you to share your insight and what that means to you when you hear that. So the first one is love is person centered and lust is pleasure centered. And I want you to be thinking about it in regards to how you are loving yourself. So when you hear love is person centered versus lust is pleasure centered, share with me what you think of in regards to yourself and loving yourself.
We can't see the whole thing. Can you
You know what? I'm going to slide it up.
hit that little button down at the right that hits the two arrows? Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Perfect. Sorry
Thank
to
you.
interrupt.
No, that's good. Thanks. Okay. So what do you think? Tell me what it means to you to be love is person centered.
So immediately I was thinking like, I mean, it always for me it always goes back to food, right? Like loving myself is doing something that my spirit or my like actually I want to do, where lust is kind of like just worrying about what my body wants right now.
Yep. Getting that pleasure, right? Seeking the pleasure. Yeah. Anything else?
I think about if it's person centered, generally that means I'm worried about the other person more than myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pleasure centered is more worried about me.
Right. So when you're loving yourself and it's person centered, translate that from what you just said.
Oh. Well, then we think we're selfish, right? But if I'm loving myself person centered, then I would be more concerned about me as a whole versus temporary pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Like the betterment of your life, choosing to do things for the betterment of your life. Like Laura brought up, like the spirit. What is your spirit telling you to do for the betterment of you?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, Linda, do you have anything you want to say?
Yes, possibly person centered would be like forever, and pleasure centered would be just right now.
Temporary, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, totally. Okay, so number 2, love does not depend on physical appearance. Lust depends on physical appearance. So let's translate to loving ourselves. How often do we gauge how we feel about ourselves according to our appearance? I think we do it a lot. So any thoughts about that? Love does not depend on physical appearance and lust does.
I was kind of thinking it also doesn't depend on what we do or don't do. So it kind of extends like, yeah, it doesn't, whether I'm happy with how I look shouldn't determine whether I love myself or not, but also, how I don't know how productive I am or how loving I show up or whatever. But you love yourself no matter what.
Yeah. Yep. It's not about the size, right? Okay, let's do number 3. And if you are listening to this as a recording, just stop the recording and write things down that come to your mind. Because, things will come to you that might not be said, but that you think about or you have thought about in the past. So, number 3, love is long lasting and lust is momentary. So, how could you translate to loving yourself in regards to long lasting?
I would say realizing it's a long journey, and having that compassion. So if I'm momentarily upset or happy with myself, love will help me realize like this moment doesn't define me or who I am or my worth.
Yeah, that's really good. Linda or Laura, any thoughts?
It's like lust is fragile and fleeting, and love is long lasting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, number 4, love desires long-term commitment and lust is a no strings attached transaction. So how do you translate that in regards to like, let's talk about your health right now with loving yourself. So long-term commitment. What does that mean to you when you think about loving yourself physically with long-term commitment?
Is
Well,
it
that
like thinking more in the future rather than like right now? So you're making decisions for yourself based on like a longer term vision.
Mm-hmm. Good. Linda?
like that saying that people always say, older people say, if I knew I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of my body.
Yeah.
So, like, when we're young, we don't realize if we live, we're going to keep that body. And so we better take care of it.
Yeah. I think that the brain is saying, enjoy this moment, do these things that will cause you temporary happiness. Uh, you know, it- but in the end, it adds up over time, right? There,
Yes.
there's that quote that I've said last week is slow as a go and fast. No. Slow as a go and fast doesn't last. So if we take things on a long-term commitment and think about our lives and loving ourselves and caring for ourselves, we need to look at it as a long-term with no finish line. Any other thoughts before we go to the next one? Okay. Number 5, love sees the other person as a partner. Lust sees the other person as an object. So how can you translate those 2 sentences in regards to loving yourself?
I see it as Beth and I talked about last night, these 2 columns, one being the body and one being the spirit. So the spirit will see your body as a partner. Your body will see your spirit as an object. Like it's just this thing to keep alive and keep happy and keep restful and seeking pleasure, right? And so when the spirit and the body work together, you have that ultimate relationship with yourself. And when you're just running off of your brain, you're only going to feed that momentary, those needs, those chemical dopamine hits and all those things. So that was an epiphany I just had.
That is awesome because your spirit and body working together are a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
But if your body's in control, you are objectifying yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Any thoughts, Linda or Laura, about that?
Well, I think the lust uses um uses you and not for good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ah, that's really good. Anything, Laura? Okay. Number 6, love builds and lust destroys. So think about yourself in the years you've been on this earth. How have you either built this love with yourself or moments of destruction? While you're thinking about it, I'm just going to share a personal experience. Um, as I After I had our 6th child and I decided when he was a year and a half that I was going to go start working out again, because when I was growing up, I literally spent my life totally physically active with my brothers. I had 4 brothers. I was out all the time. I was just creating, having fun, being physical. And really, when you have children, your life is really consumed with their needs, and that's wonderful, and that's how it should be. And for me, that's what I love. And so I decided after Gannon was, a year and a half, that I needed to go back and start working out at the gym. But I noticed what happened is my body, I was so intent on getting being a certain way or looking a certain way, that I began to like kind of destroy my body, like my back, my hips, my elbows, my wrists. I felt like I was falling apart. And I realized that I needed to like slow down and find things that would help me start to build back my body and strengthen it and love it for what it does for me. And so I really, over the years, I have worked very hard at showing myself love by building my body in a way that it's not causing destruction, where it's hard to function, hard to sleep, having to go to the doctor, acupuncturist, being on ibuprofen. I'm now doing things that show my body love through building in a positive way. So, any thoughts about how love builds and lust destroys?
I was just thinking it's like when I think of things I tell myself about myself. So, like thoughts that I have about myself, is it building me up or is it destroying me?
That's really good. Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
When I loved your story because it made me think of um, when you were first starting to work out, you were using your body to get something. Like you were trying to get a feeling about yourself,
Mhm.
and um, yeah, it's just like using another person.
Yeah.
And like, look how many things that sometimes we use to get something negative, like maybe church callings. We might use them to feel good about ourselves, or maybe just looking a certain way. We want outside praise, and you know.
Yeah.
You know what, Linda? I love that you
Mhm.
said that, because all of a sudden the thought came to me. Love is from the inside out. Lust is from the outside in.
Ooh, that's so good.
And so if we remember that we're building is an inside structure of building that foundation and then growing or building upon it, it's from the inside. It's not from outside sources. So yeah, thank you. That's really good.
Beth, can I tell you? So this is kind of, I had a similar experience with exercise. I was doing this exercise program that was like killing me, and I didn't look forward to it. When my alarm would go off in the morning, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. And, it was the whole time it was torture the whole time I was doing it. And so I switched to this other exercise program that like might not give me the physical results that I wanted in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
but I enjoy and I look forward to. And so when the alarm goes off, I still don't want to get out of bed, but I'm not like, I'm not expecting torture to come, right? And I was thinking about like kind of what you said, and like my mom kind of said that too, is like I kept thinking, why was I doing that hard exercise program? It was so that I could look a certain way
Way.
and so that
Mhm.
other people maybe could look at me a certain way. And I realized it needed to be for me from the inside out.
Mhm. Good. Yes.
I love that.
Yes. 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 So true. Good, 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 good. Okay. Number 7, love gives and lust takes. How can we translate that for learning to love ourselves? Love gives, lust takes.
Beth, this is really a stretch for me because it's so easy to think about it when you're thinking about other people, but to turn it on yourself, it's it's kind of deep.
I
Mhm.
know. Any thoughts?
I think like with these last two, love builds, love gives, lust destroys, lust takes. I can't help but think about my first marriage that, didn't pattern after that. Love build, love gives. It destroyed, it took, no matter how much. So if you translate it that to yourself, right? So no matter how much the world gives you and builds you, unless you're doing it for yourself,
Oh, mhm.
you're trying to use the world to give you what you need. And so what actually is going to happen is it's going to destroy and take from your self-love, because like what Linda said, that was beautiful, that you're you're using the world for what you can actually give yourself inside, and it never matches up. I love that so much. So like we say at the end of the day, if you're feeling depleted, we tend to reward ourselves with food instead of going inside and going, what do you need? What are you lacking that I can give you, that I can give myself through the tools of prayer, meditation, and that positive self-talk, to give yourself and build yourself up instead of using worldly matters.
Yeah.
Love it. So good.
And, that's one thing about giving is there are things that I do on a weekly basis that are non-negotiables for me. Like it's a set time that I schedule with myself to give myself a feeling of value and care. Like lifting weights for me is a non-negotiable. Like I love it. I set that time aside. It's an appointment with myself, and it's a way to give myself care and build my body, strengthen it from the inside out. And then I love warm baths at night. Those are non-negotiables for me. It just gives me relaxation and happiness, and I love it, and it makes me feel ready to settle down and get ready to go to bed. So there's things that we can choose to do when we are giving love to ourselves, whatever that looks like, that um, doesn't take away from us, but builds us up and gives.
Mm.
Okay, number 8. Love produces joy and lust produces thrill. So I think whenever I think of the word joy, I think of President Nelson when he talked about how joy is not so much about the circumstance of your life, but the focus of your life. And then I thought about the talk by Elder David Bednar, where he talks about the difference between happiness and fun. I think it was that fun's about like seeking a thrill, So how can we translate producing joy and producing the thrill in regards to loving ourselves?
I think maybe like we could use like how we spend our time. If we're doing things that are going to benefit, truly benefit ourselves, rather than maybe just watch mindless TV and waste our time. That's just kind of a temporary thrill. And I think the natural man wants us to do those things. But if we're doing something that's more permanent and kind of soothing to our spirit, then we'll have more joy.
Mm-hmm. And the focus will switch. Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
Hmm.
Any other thoughts?
I think so. I listened to a thing about choosing where to put your dopamine. So I think we can teach, our spirits can help teach our brains what's fun, what's thrilling, right? Like buying a shirt is fun for that moment and the day you wear it, but having your clean, organized closet is fun for as long as you keep it clean and months. Or, um, you know, a walk with your husband and having a good conversation. You can choose so many good thoughts around that activity that your thrill comes from that versus going out to eat to the place you didn't want to go out to eat, right? Or that used to be where my dopamine hit is, but because I'm going to choose thoughts around a different situation, it will produce that joy and that fun in the areas that are loving and long lasting versus temporary and leaving you wanting for more.
Yeah, good. Yes, that's so true. You know, I was thinking about that actually this weekend because I'm reading a book by Terrence Real. It's called Us. Um, I can't remember the undertitle of it, but it's basically how to love one another completely in a whole way. And I got a notification from the library that said it's due on Tuesday. And I tried to make a renew it. And they said it's on a wait list, so you can't renew it. And so instead of watching any Netflix documentaries like I would, I just been waking up early in the morning and reading because I want to be able to finish it before I have to send it back on Tuesday. And not only is the book opening my eyes and helping me see things differently, like it's giving me a focus on our marriage and on how I could change myself and better myself. So I'm getting a lot of joy from it because of my focus where it's at. And it's not so much sitting back and watching documentaries. They're not bad. I love them, but I'm not getting that thrill, that dopamine hit from sitting down and watching those documentaries instead of reading a book that's giving me a lot to consume and create with. So good. Okay. Number 9, love waits and lust is now. How do you translate that in regards to yourself? Loving yourself.
It doesn't expect you to be done now. Like you said, there's no finish line. It's going to wait for you to do anything with compassion and grace.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Anything else?
And I was thinking maybe love waits, like it could be being patient with yourself, like not expecting your perfection right today, but that you'll just be patient with yourself.
You know what, Linda? I love that you said that because it's literally on my notes. Patience helps us find the right person to spend the rest of our life with and be who that person deserves. Therefore, in love, we do not rush things. So, with ourselves, we need to be patient. And I love that you brought that up. We do have to be patient with ourselves as we're trying to become the person we desire to become.
And it's interesting because we can usually be patient with everybody else.
Yeah.
We will give and forgive and give and forgive, but with ourselves, like this, at the first sign of you didn't do it the way you wanted to, you're like shame and guilt and shame instead of like, it's okay, we're going to keep trying. And
Yep.
it goes back to that, like loving ourselves the same way we allow even our children, right? Like, it's okay. I love you. We make mistakes. Keep going.
Yes, that is absolutely true. So, thank you for bringing that up. Okay, number 10, love respects and lust gets disappointed. So, what does that mean in regards to ourselves? Love respects and lust gets disappointed.
I kind of think it's like when you get on yourself for making a mistake or doing something wrong, like you're disappointed in yourself, but then, and so that would be lust. But then love is like kind of what Julie just said, like, we can try again. It you know, like kind of having patience with yourself, like understanding your worth and realizing that you can, that we're human and that we can try again.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense, but
Yeah. Um, when you love a person, you respect his or her principles and decisions. You would not force that person to do something he or she did not want to do, even if it means depriving yourself from something that you want. So when you show respect for yourself, you know, when you make a decision, you respect yourself moving forward with that decision and not beat yourself up because it's a daily learning that we go through. So
yeah, it
that's
should
good.
kind of be like you're learning from what you're doing instead of getting down on yourself.
So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, and we tend to, if you think about someone you respect, like a professor or a bishop or a friend, and you set an appointment with them, you respect them, you're going to show up. But we don't do that with ourselves. Like you have non-negotiables. You respect yourself enough to know that that's an appointment you've set and you're going to show up. And so I think there's expectations of ourselves that are usually a little too high. And so when we don't meet them, we use that as a way to shame or not love ourselves or find evidence for we're not good enough versus, can you guys hear my rain?
Mm-mm.
Okay, good. Then the microphone is working. It is so loud. Sorry. But versus is having a realistic expectation of yourself and respecting yourself enough to continue to show up knowing you can meet that and not disappointing yourself over and over and over.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good.
I struggle with that a lot, like definitely not keeping my appointments with myself because it feels better to me to give to others and do those things because I get that momentary, like I did that for them. That feels good. It's in the now almost. But towards the end of the day is when I'm like, and I didn't do anything I said I was going to do for me. Right. And so that's just something I have to work on constantly.
Mm-hmm. I love what you said about like if we had a doctor we respected, or say we had an appointment with the bishop or something, or you know, whatever it was, we would be showing a lack of respect if we like showed up late or didn't even show up at all. But like you said, you know, sometimes we don't show ourselves the respect by showing up for ourselves and like being accountable to us and doing what we said we would do to better love ourselves. So that's really good.
Beth, I have something about that. I've heard this coach that I follow has talked about how Heavenly Father doesn't get disappointed in us, because I guess he just knows that we're not going to be perfect and that we're human. And so if we could treat ourselves like he does, like, and also he respects us by giving us our agency.
Yeah.
But I think we just need to not be so hard on ourselves and not be disappointed when we're not perfect.
Yes. And you know, when you can tell yourself that, like Satan, the father of all lies, he's miserable. And when we're feeling miserable about ourselves, it's because that's what he desires, that all men will be like unto him. And we don't want to participate in his little design.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, love sacrifices and lust seeks for other means. How do you translate that in regards to loving yourself? Love sacrifices and lust seeks for other means.
Maybe like lust seeks for other means would be like blaming other people and expecting them to solve your problems and not looking at yourself. But if you look at yourself and make sacrifices, then you'll get what you want.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Anything else?
Um, so if we're sacrificing, like, as mothers and wives, we sacrifice our times and needs for our children, right? So that they can have what they want. And so looking for other means would be, instead of that, that's kind of wanting it all, thinking we can have it all. I don't want to give up the sweets. I don't want to exercise, but I still want the great figure. Or I want to have this great relationship in marriage, but I don't really want to be like, I don't want to sacrifice my time and talents for him. I want him to do what I want to do, right? So it's kind of that lie of like, you can have it all, you don't have to give anything up and you'll be happy, which is not true, right? It's the give and take of learning that sacrifice and learning to give to others and finding love through that. So same thing with us. So sacrificing the wants of now so that we can have long-term joy, love, respect for ourselves. The now wants to stay in bed and keep sleeping. The now wants to eat the thing that's in front of me. The now wants to buy the thing. It wants to do all those crutches and those buffers that keep us from having to sacrifice. Because sacrificing is like a little hard. Feels our brains kind of go, "Oh, don't do that. That's hard. Let's just keep eating and keep doing all the things that feels good now."
Yeah. And sacrifice is giving up something now for a better cause. So it fits right with what you're saying. Any other thoughts before we go to the last one? Okay. The last one is that love involves trust and lust does not trust. So, how do we show love to ourselves? By giving us that trust, having that trust, as opposed to not trusting ourselves.
Like what's coming to mind for me is like thinking I'm not capable of something. I don't know. Is that right?
Like, are you saying like you're not capable of accomplishing something?
Yeah, like thinking about a goal that I might want, but then thinking, oh, I could never do
Can't
that.
do that. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not that kind of I'm not the kind of person who can't or who can go without sugar, or I'm not the kind of person who can say start a podcast, right? Like not thinking that you're worthy or capable of something that you want
Yeah.
versus trusting that if you wanted it, you could do it.
You can do it. Yeah. Because look at, like, for you, for example, Laura, look what you did. You started a podcast,
Right.
right? You and Amity started a podcast. And you probably looked back when you before and thought, I can't do a podcast. But you trusted your inner core. You know what? I think I might be able to. We can do this.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about that last night. Like, I'm like, she was talking about how difficult the social media part has been. She's trying to figure it out. And I'm like, look, 2 months ago, I would have said, there's no way we can do this. But we just decided 2 months ago or 3 months ago that we were just going to take it one step at a time. And like, we were going to figure it out. So we trusted that it could happen. Anyways, but I think
Yes.
that's great. Maybe just believing in yourself.
Yes. 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 Okay. Linda, Julie, any thoughts?
See, now I lost the screen here. I really like that about the trust. But let's see. Okay, so just um having just believing in yourself, which is kind of what Laura said. But I think I told you one time I was talking about how I feel about my kids, like when they would want to do things, like as they got older, um like maybe they wanted to go to school or study a certain thing or whatever. And I've always just had trust in them knowing what was right for them. If they thought it was right, I trusted that they knew best. So I think that's what we need to do self, like trust our inner self, and trust, because a lot of times we know things um more than we know them. And just we need to listen to ourselves and trust what our spirit says to us.
Yes, that was the thought is our spirit on a spiritual level, it knows truth. We existed before we came to this earth, right? And if we trust and try very hard to like seek the answers that that our spirit knows about us and learn to love ourselves through trusting that, then there's no limit for us. Julie, did you have anything that you were going to say?
Just that, I mean, our trust and faith, kind of the same things when it comes to ourselves, believing in something we haven't seen yet, knowing that there's a capability at the end. So this one was a harder one that I'm like, huh. So if I'm looking at something that's lustful and doesn't trust, it would be something that I couldn't rely on long term almost within myself. So help me out here. Coach me through that. Like if I'm lusting something about myself, would it be a worldly attribute, a unrealistic expectation? I don't know.
So
I think it'd be like not trusting that
Mm,
like you just
relying
have to,
on something else.
yeah, like maybe worldly opinions, but
Mhm,
you
mhm.
need to trust that you deep down the truth.
Ooh, there you go. Thank you. That's
well,
it
and
right there.
think about because I'll be honest here. One of my biggest struggles in my life is trusting people. I put up a guard to protect myself so that I don't get hurt because I don't necessarily trust. Um, and I feel like if you if you love yourself, which involves trusting yourself, is you put down these guards and barriers that you create to protect yourself, and you trust that you have the capability to do what's right for your body or for your mind, and you seek the guidance to make that trust strengthened, like build stronger.
Yeah.
I
Instead of
think
the fear.
yes, it's like the fear and faith.
Yeah.
Trust is having that faith that even though I can't see it, it exists and it's real, but I don't have the proof of physically seeing it maybe. But the fear on the lust side is that I'm afraid I'm not going to trust at all. Like I'm not going to trust, communication for me, like from the Holy Ghost, or I'm not going to trust anything like, but I don't know. Anyway, what are your thoughts after hearing those things from Linda and myself?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's the being able to quiet the lust and
The fear.
the seeking, yeah, the seeking and the fear of not being able to trust myself and just loving myself and knowing that I'm capable of everything that I want and desire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts before we wrap this up? Okay. So, what Julie and I would love for you to do is we want you to think of take an area of your life, anything from this list. And what we'll do is we'll put it in a document, an email where you can get access to it, PDF form or whatever. And think about one area that you feel like you struggle a little bit on loving yourself. Is it trust? Is it commitment to yourself? Like if you set an appointment, you do it. Is it waiting and not having that instant gratification? What is it from the list that you feel like, you know what, I really want to work on this? And then we want you to take the time to to focus on that during the week and start to love yourself more and build that relationship with yourself, that you trust yourself and that you can find joy in who you are and the gift that you are to this earth. So, Julie, do you have anything to add before we kind of wrap that up?
No, yeah. And then the other tidbit was just to take the week to notice how well you do love others and how good you are at loving. Because if we can build that confidence that we already have the skill to love, we do it so well for other people, that if you take the time to let your brain gather the evidence that, like, look how good I am at that. Look how good I am at serving that person. Look how good I am at this. When it comes time to flip that around to ourselves and write that narrative, we already have all the evidence we need to show ourselves how to love ourselves. And so you're just going to kind of work on that one area of like, I could do a little better here. And then just pat yourself on the back all week long. You woke up this morning. You got dressed, you fed children, you made phone calls, you're on this call. Like, we do so many things that we just autopilot through that we don't have to do. And so loving yourself and recognizing that is a huge step in growing the love for yourself. So that's the other challenge.
And when you love yourself, it will show up in every relationship in your life even more abundantly. And so just remember that the more love you build in having that partnership with yourself, it's going to ripple out to all your relationships in your lives. Okay. Any questions before we end this little workshop, Linda or Laura?
No, but it was great.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't have any questions, but oh my gosh, that was good.
Good. Well, we appreciate you guys being on here and participating in, and we just want to help especially women. I just think we're so hard on ourselves, and we just want you to love yourself and to see all the great things you have to offer this world and not be diminished by lust. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you, you guys.
Thank you.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.
Next week.